Hey everyone, I've had this little mind worm as a result of some conversations I've had with some casual Pokemon flippers. So, flippers are the people who see little opportunities in the hobby and they make money from buying and selling. These are the guys who like take, a $100 card and flip it for 120. They'll make 20 bucks, right? Or they'll buy a collection and they'll sell each card individually. And a lot of people selling online are flippers. Now, most times this is under the table profit. So flipping in itself is not a bad thing. I mean, it's part of the trading hobby, right? People are getting immediate cash for the cards, and they're saving that person the extra hassle of, selling it themselves or breaking it down. So flippers, people buy and sell cards. What I wanted to talk to you about is when to consider stop under the table flipping. When to get your official flipper license. Basically, when do you go ahead and start operating as a business rather than a casual under the table endeavor. Now, I'm not a tax advisor, etc. This video itself is probably not for everything. It's only for, a sliver of people in the Pokemon collecting hobby who do flipping. And I'm just going to throw out some ideas here. Not a tax advisor, not an accountant. These are just thoughts, things for you to maybe go and investigate and take a look at yourself. So let's set the stage. Let's say you make good money. You make about $80,000 a year. Taxman withholds, or basically your company withholds about $24,000 a year. And I'm Canadian, so we get taxed. So you're bringing home about $56,000 a year. Not bad. But then you try to claw that tax back. You do that by, setting up your RRSP, by trying to figure out if there's any tax breaks, setting up your 401k if you're US, and you take advantage of any tax credits you can. So let's say you're a fireman, you get a tax credit for being a fireman. Let's say you paid for childcare, you have the receipts, you get tax savings for that. You spend money on boots, work equipment for your job. You have a receipt, you get a little tax break. If you have a receipt for it and the government gives you a break, that's excellent. That's a tax break, right? The government likes to help you with tax breaks on things that spur economic activity. Things that make them more money, boosting the economy, there's usually a tax credit for it. And it brings me down. So let's say you do all this stuff. Instead of bringing home 56K, you get another 4K refund, right? You got that 4K refund from your tax time. Excellent. So overall, you've brought home 60K in cash in your bank accounts for the year. Obviously you've spent it, but so Pokemon. Let's say you're a casual flipper and eBay says you did $10,000 worth of Pokemon sales last year. Question would be, did you make $90,000 in income? Or did you make $70,000 in income last year? If you're a flipper, you guys know the answer is neither, right? Likely, if you made $10,000 in sales in Pokemon on eBay or something like that, you probably spent $1,500 in eBay fees, which you don't get. It probably cost you like $6,500 just in buying and selling cards. And you probably spent a ton in shipping fees, right? $500 shipping stuff here and there. Canada's probably worse. Shipping is nasty. So your profit after all this, you maybe made $1,500 the whole year doing $10,000 worth of revenue. Very, good numbers. You brought $1,500, right? If you exchanged your time for making that extra $10,000, the government, like if you did part-time work, they'd want to tax you for it, obviously. They'd want their $4,000 tax piece of it. If you flipped cards and earned $10,000 in revenue, you didn't just exchange your time for money. You actually spent money on a bunch of things. Shipping, eBay fees, the product itself. So what this means is that if you're running flipping as a business, the costs that are associated with you doing all that flipping work, all that shipping, you really should be factoring them in to the work, or basically the profit that you make. There actually can be tax considerations against your income tax, when you're spending money on inventory, when you're spending money on shipping, when you're spending money on fees. It can add up. Picking up those extra hours, let's say you're doing part-time work, exchanging money, it's far more lucrative than flipping. When you change your time for money, it's far more lucrative. I'll state that clearly here. But that's, getting a second income or, overtime or whatever. If you're in a situation where you cannot get a second income, maybe your job has, you're not allowed to work in the same field, you're not allowed to subcontract, etc. Maybe you're getting a second income by doing the Pokemon flipping. This is my situation. I cannot, take more contracts and make more money. I'm, my day job is my day job, and I can't work on the same thing for someone else. It's just not allowed. So, in weekends and evenings, I'll do a flip. I'll work on my store. If you enjoy doing it, I do as well, you really should investigate establishing a business and operating your flipping under the umbrella of a business. And I'm going to explain why. We went full online business. We got distribution, we do importing of Japanese cards, we do trading credit, we do all that stuff. A business, it can be just flipping as well. And you can keep it small as well. Businesses can be small. But if you make money buying and selling things, using services especially, you should really consider if you should be doing it under the business umbrella, because all those things you're spending on, that's economic activity. And the government, they give you some tax breaks relating to you doing that. Now, this is where I'm saying again, I'm not a tax advisor, seek professional tax advice, etc. But if you're making money in Pokemon, there are benefits to doing it under the business umbrella. Here's what happens if you're a real business. Your profits, you made $1,500, your profits will get taxed. So the government will say, oh, that $1,500 in profit you've made, I need a small portion of that. I'll need $300. Okay. But then, here's where things, then the government will think about giving you a tax reduction because of all the money you spent. You spent $1,500 on shipping. You spent money on eBay fees as well. The government will consider that in terms of how much tax on profit you make. So let's say they give you that $300 back. Still, you're back. You paid $300 on your profit. You're getting $300 back in your tax. You'll end up bringing $1,500 home, and then you'll say, oh, well, I did all that work being in business and I'm getting the same amount. Why not just keep doing it under the table? Well, here's how things can be slightly different and slightly advantageous. There are things that you already pay for in your day-to-day life as a casual flipper that you might also be able to consider. So consult a tax advisor, etc. But the portion that you might already be paid might be able to consider as a business expense, which might relieve some of that tax that you pay. It's especially true if you're operating a business and you also have, income taxes going on, can all be considered. But I mean, as a flipper, do you use the internet? Do you have a postal box? Do you buy envelopes? Do you buy boxes to ship things? Those are things that you might want to also consider, right? It might be things you're already doing. If you're an under-the-table flipper, those costs are sunk. You pay them. There's no tax break from spending there. But if you operate as a business, there might be something. So let's say you spend an extra $500 a year paying for internet, postal box, and such. You might get a tax break for those extra expenses, right? So maybe they give you, another $100 tax break. So instead of you bringing home $1,500 in tax, you're all of a sudden you're getting $1,600, right? Your profit for the year is $1,600 because you have a little tax break on your taxes paid. This question: how do you become a business? Well, there's a lot of resources out there on how to create a small business, and I think you should look at them for your jurisdiction. You register a business, you register a business name, you register with the government. They'll charge you a fee, but the interesting thing is that fee you pay to the government, well, that's also usually tax deductible. Check with your tax accountant. You'd form either like a sole proprietor, or limited liability company in your area. See which one works the best for you. They definitely differ. I think sole prop is a less work, but I think there's more advantages to having a limited liability company. But when you have a business, you got to do bookkeeping. You have to know what you're spending your money on. You have to know what money you're bringing in, and you have to really switch to tracking it all. So you have to be tracking everything that you're doing with your business. That's the big change when you go from flipping as a casual to flipping as a business, is you really have to be deep in the documenting. You have to start considering keeping every single line item, every single receipt that goes towards this and that. You have to include it. Bookkeeping, it can be scary, but it's actually not that bad. Really, it's just You have, and I'll share a spreadsheet here, but really you have your expenses versus your revenue, basically sales versus expenses. And when you put them all together, if you have the right tool, you can just adds them up, and you can keep track of everything. You just record every time you sell a card, every time you spend money on shipping a card, or every time you spend money on PSA returns. Keep receipts. Keep digital receipts. Don't just have a pile of receipts building up for the year. Constantly have a digital record. Keep track of it. Daily, weekly, never less frequent than weekly. So constantly be keeping your documents, basically your general ledger of your business. Keep it up to date. I mean, don't wait till the end of the year. It's a really bad mistake. Be constantly updating it. Be constantly putting in, and put in every dollar you spend, every dollar you make. You can run a really tight business with pretty minimal effort. The more you do it, the more you understand. Never do it less than weekly. If you don't want to get to the end of the year and be like completely overwhelmed and be forgetting things, you just continuously keep it updated. You're running a business. Run the business, right? It's no longer flipping. You're now a business. You're buying and selling goods. And you have to see it as that way. Next thing I'd say is when you become a professional flipper, it kind of sucks some fun out of it. A lot of people, like, you see some people say, oh, I made $2,000 on eBay last year. And if you ask them if that's profit, they'll it's not, right? You really get a good view, a good lens on how much you spend and how much it costs to flip. And it can kind of be disappointing because, the was it the $1.85 you spend on stamps goes in the spreadsheet. Obviously, the top that wipes away $1.85 of profit made on selling the card. So you start to realize with much more detail, and you have data to indicate how you're doing. When I first started working with an accountant, tax advisor, they gave me this spreadsheet, and I've been using it for multiple years now. Since the Pokemon sales business is pretty simple business. It's retail, right? Money in, money out. I've used it for multiple years to manage my business. I'm going to put the link in the description as well in case you want to have a look at what it takes. It's really just a spreadsheet. I use Excel. It's business expense having Excel. Now you just add a row for every line item. You have a sale, you add a row. You spend money on PSA fees, you add a row. What happens is it keeps track of everything you spend and everything you earn. In essence, there are two main columns. There's money in and money out. Now, what's interesting actually is when you start to track what you're doing as a business and you're entering the line items whenever you make revenue, whenever you have business events, at the end of the year, it'll show you basically how much money you spend on flipping cards, how much money you earned on flipping cards. And you'll see exactly, and you'll have numbers to back it up, and you'll have all the receipts to back it up, exactly how much profit you made, right? And why this is a big deal? Well, it can answer a lot of questions, right? How is my business doing? How much did I buy? How much did I sell? When you're doing this, you start to see that there might be advantageous tax breaks as a result of running your business, right? As I mentioned before, you might get a little bit more profit out of doing the flipping thing if you're running everything as a business and a well-structured, honest, straight out business. You record like how much taxes you paid. You record, bad debt. Someone scammed you, or there's a chargeback on the service you use. You record bank fees. You record interest fees. You record government fees. You record how much you purchased inventory. Like you bought $100 in cards, you put it in. You record, well, do you use a small portion of your home internet for doing this business? Maybe. Do you use a small portion of your home to store to all your cards? Maybe. Do you spend money on office supplies, opening up boxes? Maybe. Do you spend money on advertising and promos? Let's say you bought, oh man, I should have one here, but let's say you bought a set of stickers to boost your business. That's promotional material. Obviously shipping, packing supplies, freight. So I order lots of boxes at once and I pay freight. Goes in. I mean, all of these line items, all of these things that you spend money on to run your business, you have to track them all. And it becomes insight into time when you're doing your taxes, when you're doing the success and profit of your business. How much did you spend? Is there anything that you spent on spurring economic activity in the economy that the government is going to give you tax credit for, right? They're going to give you a tax break on. It happens. You pay PSA to grade your cards. You pay a service. Is the service fee covered? You go to a card convention and you buy a table and you vend and you stay overnight and you drive 100 kilometers. You're running as a business. Is there any tax advantages? You're going to spend the money anyway. Maybe you enjoy going to the convention. That's okay, but you spent money running your business there, doing stuff. Those are line items that you put in your spreadsheet, and they're costs to you operating as a business. And every single receipt, pop it into one of these bad boys every single time. Just have it broken out into each of these line items: inventory purchases, shipping fees, travel fees, government fees. Record every time you sell something. Let's say you go to a convention and you sell $3,000 worth of cards. Record it as a line item as revenue. And that's how it works. It's quite simple. Now, as these activities all spur economic activity, they don't give it all back. The government doesn't say, oh, it's a write-off, give it all back. They don't. But it can offset some taxes. If you're flipping and you're spending money to make money, if you have an income tax, if you're paying income taxes, it's possible that it might even offset some of the income taxes you pay. It might increase how much money you end up getting back from your income tax if you're doing all these things that spur economic activity. If you're functioning as a real business and you're earning about $1,500 in profit through the year, there might be further opportunity to bring home more of that cash that you made, of that $10,000 in eBay revenue you did. There might be other opportunities where you get to claw more back in the overall boosting of economic activity. There is very much value in having a good tax advisor and tax accountant when you're doing this. Whether you first, work with some early on and you're flipping, try to understand everything you have. It can be better than flipping under the table, to be hiding things, hiding profit. It can be better. It is a lot more work. If you're already doing the flipping, if you're already, keeping track of things, buying stuff, knowing that you're spending money on these service fees, I would say start recording what exactly everything is doing. And that's the biggest challenge when you become a business, is really just keeping track of everything. It doesn't cost a lot to register a business. You can't lose money indefinitely as this. You can't use a business to buy cards and report losses. You can't be a collector business loser, right? This is for people who are making or plan to make revenue through their flipping activities. Should you consider it? Are you flipping already? Would it be worth flipping the switch and becoming a full-fledged business? Even if you're considering it, even if you're thinking of it, look into what it is to keep track of your expenses. Even as a collector, this is a really good thing to do. It's also scary as hell, because what you end up seeing is, holy crap. I mean, and everybody knows it, but holy crap, is this an expensive hobby? So if you're an amateur flipper and you're considering becoming the big leagues, or even, the minor leagues of just, functioning as a true economic development business, making some profit, do your research. Don't just listen to me, but look into it. You might be better off functioning as a true business than being an under-the-table flipper. You could have a business as a side hustle, not necessarily under-the-table flipping. Consider it. I hope this information was interesting. Like I said, I'll put the link on what the spreadsheet might look like for you tracking all of your expenses. Feel free to ask me any questions that I have. I'm not a tax advisor. This is not tax advice, but this is something for you to pursue and look at. Uncover yourself. Think about it. Maybe use a spreadsheet to track your collecting, how much money you spend on the hobby. It unveils some very interesting things. Hope you guys enjoyed listening to me get this horrible mindworm out of my head. Hopefully the people who've asked me similar questions, this helps them out becoming a business or just continuing to flip under the table. So thanks, like, subscribe, all that fun stuff. Cheers.